That's a great book. Just finished reading it last week.
Well, don't spoil it for me.
Okay.
I just started reading it.
I'm Jim, by the way.
I'm Cindy.
So, Cindy, if you're not in a rush or anything, why don't I buy you another coffee?
I'm not doing anything. I'm not in a rush. So
Yeah,
that'd
sure.
be great.
Hi beautiful souls! So I hope you enjoyed that little skit that I made over there to kind of demonstrate to you the vibes of Venus in partner's first house placements in the Synastry chart overlay. So if you haven't yet watched my introduction video to Synastry, I would recommend that you watch that one first, because I'm gonna kind of be referring to role casting and stage and actors, so it's gonna be kind of confusing, so I would recommend that you watch that video. The link's up there in the description box below, and then come back here. So when we're talking about Miss Venus, this actor, we're talking about an actor that really embodies the epitome of beauty and romance and love and commitment and seduction and harmony and giving. You know, Venus is really giving, and Venus is willing to give to something that Venus thinks is worthy of her love. So a good Venus placement in Synastry is going to indicate all of that, and values, I forgot to mention, and values. But a kind of negative Venus placement in the Synastry chart is of course going to show the opposite. So the first house is the trailer, the movie trailer or the movie poster, right? So this means that the Venus person is going to see the trailer or see the house person, the first house of the house person. And they are, because Venus is love, they are going to fall in love at first sight. This is one of those love at first sight placements in Synastry. The love actor sees the trailer and immediately they love what they see because it's so captivating and so mesmerizing and just really good to keep watching and keep looking at. Now, whether the Venus person has an accuracy, has a good perception of the house person's personalities, and that's why they're falling in love with it or not, will depend on other aspects that are going on in the chart and will depend on the house person's first house. If the house person has planets in the first house, that is indicative of their inner nature. And they're kind of having in the first house, so it's very easy for the Venus person to see. For example, they have their moon or sun or even Venus in the first house, then the Venus person kind of has a good perspective of who the house person actually is, and they love that. Now, if the first house of the house person is empty, then the Venus person might have a more superficial kind of view and might fall in love a little more superficially with the house person. And this placement doesn't necessarily indicate like a full-on commitment. A deeper commitment is going to depend on other things in the natal chart. It could be depending on other things that's going on, or it could not be. If this is the only thing that's happening that really shows, you know, that love, okay? And the closer the Venus person's Venus is to the house person's rising sign or the actual ascendant, the stronger this can be felt. Now I want to give you an example of how I have this with a friend of mine. Remember, synastries don't have to always be romantic. It can be about family or just anyone that you know. And I'm just giving you this as an example of how I have my Venus in a friend of mine in her first house, very close to her ascendant. Actually, I think it's in her 12th house, but it's very close or right on top of her ascendant. And I think she's a really beautiful person, you know? There's nothing about her that is striking or anything, but because the way that I view beauty the way that I view, harmony and pleasure is the same as the vibes that she's giving off through her physical appearance and through the way that she carries herself in the world. So that's why I immediately feel that she's really beautiful. And with this placement, the house person may not look anything like Angelina Jolie. They may just be just a typical person that nobody else notices. But if your Venus is right on their ascendant or very close to the ascendant in the first house, you're going to feel like they are the most beautiful or one of the most beautiful people that you've kind of ever seen in your life. More beautiful than some celebrities on, in Hollywood even. Yeah, and now there can be a little bit of a negative aspect to this one, wherein the house person, okay, can sometimes feel like the Venus person has an expectation for the house person to always look beautiful. So they can feel a little bit under pressure to always look nice, but it's not really like that, because the Venus person does not like the house person's clothing or the way they wear their makeup and things like that. They actually enjoy looking at, and they actually like the actual way that the house person is presenting themselves and the actual physical traits of them. So they like the way that the house person smiles. They like the house person's nose. The house person can't change those things, and they don't have to change those things because the Venus person already likes the authentic physicalness of the house person. So if the house person can kind of get over this expectation that they think there is when there isn't, then the house person can kind of find themselves being able to freely express themselves and freely present themselves in the world when they hang out together, because the Venus person just loves the way that the house person moves, the way they are in the world, the way they interact with people in the world. So it's very easy then for the house person to just be in the world. And the house person sees the Venus person and really thinks that they're charming. They like the way that they like the style and the way that the Venus person carries themselves off. So there's an attraction coming both ways here. And the other thing that I like to say about this placement is that it is so strong. Okay, it's almost kind of intense, because if these two people are like in a room full of people, they will notice each other and they will not miss each other. It is hard to miss the other because the other person is just grabs your attention. Their physical appearance, the way they present themselves, the way they carry themselves just really grabs your attention. If they're in a room full of people, they're gonna be like locking eyes on each other and just noticing each other and want to get something going, okay? Now, if these two people do get into a commitment with each other, this aspect can kind of soften, okay, conflicts that occur. Because let's say that you're moody and you're frustrated and you're about to get really angry at this person, but the moment you look at them, you see a flower. And this will kind of soften your brashness or your toughness in dealing with them a little bit. And you see how it's not just a superficial physical appearance thing, it's that there is a way in which the two of them brings out a certain quality of being tender with each other just by when they look at each other. Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, the Venus person really likes to be seen with the house person because the house person is just really beautiful, and it helps the Venus person to kind of bring up their self-esteem a little, you know? And what can really happen here is that, let's say the two of them are kind of not together, like physically together, the Venus person can kind of, and maybe the house person as well, kind of maybe look at photos of the house person and vice versa. Because the house person is just so pleasing to look at, kind of like, oh, after a hard day at work, I just come back and I just look at photos, or if they're there, just look at the house person, and I just feel all calm and relaxed. And it's almost like the vibe of the house person gives the Venus person a kind of tenderness, a giving nature, loving tenderness that, you know, can be kind of hard to bring out if with other aspects, but with this one it's easy to bring out with both people actually, that to bring out that kind of giving, loving tenderness just by the way that the other one presents themselves. So it's really easy in that sense. Okay guys, so that is my take on Venus in partner's first house in the Synastry chart house overlay. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, then hit the red subscribe button below to join us on our little astrology family that we've got going here every week, learning more about ourselves, being more self-aware, and of course, learning to have better relationships with other people. If you've already subscribed, then thank you very much for coming along with me every week on these astrology growth journeys. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!